And action! Hey everyone, it's DrRic. Jen had a question about detoxing the liver, and we'll talk about that. This is actually a picture of the liver, the left lobe, the right lobe, and then the gallbladder. And it's a great organ, but if it's the first time you're finding me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. So, detoxing the liver. Well, actually, the liver is the body's detoxer. But sometimes it needs to be detoxed. If you want to learn about what to do, we should probably talk about what that does, the liver. So the digestive tract, liver is part of the digestive system, and in the digestive tract, that's that alimentary canal. It's the long tube that's about 27 feet that goes from your from your mouth to your butt, the mutt. And food or fuel goes in through the mouth, gets pushed through the esophagus into the stomach where it gets emulsified or liquefied. And when the food mixing in with the acid gets liquefied, it then gets into the small intestine, which is probably the longest part of the tract. And in the small intestine, you absorb the nutrients and you let bad stuff that's unusable go through into the colon and out the rectum. That's your digestive tract. Well, in the small intestine, we depend on absorption through the villi, the lining of the small intestine, and of nutrient. And when those nutrients or building blocks get absorbed from the lining into the bloodstream, well, once all those nutrients enter the bloodstream, they have to go to the liver. Everything goes to the liver to be processed. Now, some things that are bad also get detoxified by the liver. Some things that are good get processed by the liver and it gets sent out as far as building blocks for the rest of the body. So the problem arises when you eat a lot of toxins or poisons. And they're usually, obviously you don't do that intentionally, but some of the foods and liquids that we ingest have some bad things in them. And those bad things are recognized by the liver. Liver works great to detoxify and neutralize and then put that stuff away, either secrete it into the gallbladder or through the secretory system of the liver into the small intestine to be put out later on. But sometimes, so that's the beautiful thing about the liver. It's a detoxer, keeps us alive, and it allows you to a certain extent to neutralize poisons. So the liver has several different mechanisms to do that, and it's fantastic at what it can do. In fact, even in mythology, I think it's a Greek mythology story that puts the hero chained up against the rock, and every morning a vulture would come by and peck out the hero's liver. Every morning it would peck it out, and then every night the liver would rebuild. And then the next morning the hero that was chained to the rock had to endure the pain of being pecked out again. I forgot the specifics. I think it was Vulcan. But it just goes to show you that even in mythology days, the anatomic value of the liver was well known as far as rebuilding. So the liver can tolerate a lot of toxins, it can neutralize a lot of toxins, and it can fix itself in case those toxins destroy it temporarily. So a really cool organ. The problem is when you overwhelm the liver with way too many toxins or multiple toxins. And alcohol is a common toxin. We use it as a celebration beverage and to make ourselves kind of be relaxed, decrease inhibition, and as a reward at the end of the day or on the weekend. And the problem is if you take too much of that toxin, the liver can't get rid of all of it, so what does it do? It actually holds it in its organ system, has fat. That's how you sometimes develop a fatty liver, because the liver can usually get rid of a little bit and then rebuild itself. Get rid of a little bit and rebuild itself. But if it gets overwhelmed, it gets rid of a lot and it starts to say, I can't handle all this, so it accumulates fat. It accumulates the damage, or the toxin is fat, and the fat gets infiltrated throughout all the liver cells. Now, hopefully at a later time when you're not drinking any alcohol, I'm just using alcohol as an example of one toxin, But hopefully when you're not drinking as much, the liver can take care and fix itself. But in cases where you keep on hitting yourself with, again, this story is with alcohol. Alcohol again and again and again before the liver has a chance to fix itself and rebuild, then you have fatty liver. It gets really big. It's called steatotic liver on ultrasound or CT scan, or just a fatty liver with liver enzyme elevation on blood testing. Now the problem is if you don't give it any time to rebuild itself, then what happens is the liver becomes cirrhotic. That's when the cells just say, I give, they wave the right flag, and then they die. Then they become fibrotic. And when a liver cell is fibrosed, it can't do any of the previous duties that it was supposed to do, and you have cirrhosis. Cirrhosis of liver, usually if you damage enough of it, the liver fails, and then you have to have a liver transplant. Now, that usually takes a long time, unless you really indulge yourself with a lot of alcohol, but here's the problem. In American society, we also take in other toxins, pesticides from food, sometimes organophosphates from other things in the environment, and then poisons. Now, poisons could be from your exposure to lead, exposure to paint, exposure to other toxins. Now, the toxins can also come in the form of excessive amounts of sugar, excessive amounts of carbohydrate, or just too much volume. Fructose. So in all the cases where you overeat, and we usually as Americans overeat, you'll also overwhelm the liver with a lot of work. And if it's already busy with the alcohol part, or the toxin part, if you say are exposed to environmental hazardous materials, and then you have an excessively bad diet, a lot of preservatives, a lot of the fast food. If you look at, I've done this in videos before, but if you look at your nutrition panel, especially on prepared foods or processed foods, you'll see in the list, the first ingredient has been the largest ingredient, and then along the line there'll be all these chemicals that are used to keep that food on the shelf or in the box. And those chemicals, in one little box, probably won't kill you, but if you constantly expose yourself to more and more and more, then again, you accumulate overwhelming stress and work for the liver. It will become fatty. So if you don't drink, if you don't take processed food, if you just take a lot of volume and calories and sugar or carbohydrates, then again, you'll still overload the liver. So this is the bottom line here, is the liver is supposed to detox us from stuff that we ingest as far as food and beverage or fluid. When the liver itself, that's supposed to detox the stuff we take, becomes toxified, then sometimes you have to withdraw and stop the damage. You know, the human body, and the liver is just an example of this, the human body can repair itself, and it can live. It's made to be bulletproof and live and fix those things that irritate it or damage. That's why we're supposed to heal. But the problem is, we not only don't take in the proper building blocks, we offend the body by taking in too many unusable things. Alcohol, sucrose, fructose, sugars. So if you can just decrease the stuff coming in, you might be able to let the liver heal up. And that's the concept, I think. The easiest concept to discuss with regards to detoxifying the liver is taking a break from all the crap that you're taking in. So sometimes it means a week to 14 days off of tobacco, a week to 14 days off of alcohol, a fasting diet, like the fasting mimicking diet or intermittent fasting, timed feedings, whatever you choose. It usually gives the gut a break. If you give the gut a break, the liver might, not, I can't say will, but it might have a little bit of a chance to fix itself. If it fixes itself, it should be able to get rid of all that fat it has accumulated before it turns into a cirrhotic or fibrotic liver. So here's the warning. If you already have a fatty liver, or if you're obese or overweight, or if your waistline for a man is greater than 40 inches or for a woman greater than 34, then you're asking for trouble. Because the likelihood is if you have all those risk factors I just mentioned, And then you have cholesterol medicine that you're taking, which usually goes hand in hand. When you're overweight or have high blood pressure or don't eat properly, your cholesterol is going to rise. And then one of us as doctors puts you on a cholesterol medicine just to tag and take care of the cholesterol. Well, the liver now has to get rid of the cholesterol medicine and it backs up. And usually that's found, and it can happen with even metformin. That's sugar medicine for diabetes. But all these medicines that we use to band-aid the medical disease will actually irritate the liver even further. So it is a problem because it accelerates the damage. So you have to be very careful. I'd always say before you get on the medicines, try to give yourself at least decrease the total calorie intake per day, maybe try a fasting diet of some sort or timed feeding of some sort, and just stop the crap that you're taking in. You have to be mindful of that stuff. Even though you don't feel anything when you're younger, if the blood tests show that you're going into damage, you should heed the warning of the doctor to make changes. The problem is most people that are young will just have blood tests that show abnormality. And I had a guy that came in the other day, young guy, totally stressed out, and he's on his way into medical school, doesn't have too much time to do anything, and he's overweight. And he wanted to get every test that I could think of, that he could think of, and his dad could think of in the world, and that's okay. I think some people need a metric of a measurement before they, as inspiration to make changes, because they can't make the changes. But the problem would come in the fact that if you are not ready to make changes and you see damage, or you just see that you're overweight and you have a big belly and you're not sleeping properly, well, the blood tests that we get, the ultrasounds that we're going to get, the CT scans we're going to get, they all will come to the same conclusion. You have to make a lifestyle change. And whether the lifestyle change is massive or whether it's small, just in nutrition, it still has to be a lifestyle change if you want to affect the labs or if you want to affect the way you feel. So bottom line with regards to detoxing a liver, I think it's worth it to detox the liver every once in a while. In yoga, we have practice when the change of season occurs to go through a little bit of a detox or a fast. In a lot of religions, some of the oldest religions on earth, most of the religions will go through a fasting of some sort. That's when you withdraw, you allow the body to reset itself. And in the work of Walter Longo, he has found that that's why I talk about the fasting mimicking diet as one of those things. I'll talk about that in my tutorial on eating for cancer, but that's coming up. So you talk about how a cell, just a basic cell, can reset itself to fix and get rid of all the age-related damage a cell goes through just by withdrawing from so much food per day. So you'll hear extremes of that in water fasting when people just get to the point under medical supervision of nothing but water. That's pretty aggressive, but usually that reset that the body gets when it takes a break from all the crap that you're exposing it to and it resets itself, it usually equals longevity and reversal of disease, which is really cool. So more and more information is out there that if you do somewhat of a detox on a regular basis, whatever you want to call it, fasting or decreased calorie intake or abstinence, if you give the body a break, it should get to the point where it fixes itself. If it fixes itself enough and enough times per year, you might even be able to reverse your disease process. So, Jannifer, good question. For the rest of you, I appreciate you watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll see you next in the clinic.